following is a GNC podcast production. Welcome to Geek Addicts, a pop culture podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Geek Addicts, the spinoff of GNC of the Gaming Collecting Podcast. I still don't know how to start yet. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
It's been a week.
Yeah, leading up to Christmas, gets a little rough.
People are just insane.
Oh, the ride home today was outrageous. People were being stupid on the road.
Traffic has significantly increased this last week or so, and it's crazy. There's a shopping district right up from where I live, and it's a shit show over there every day this week.
Yikes.
There's so many lights very close together, and they just cause massive traffic backups.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's been one of those weeks. I'm just trying to get through the rest of this month because I'm on vacation for the last week of the year. So
yeah,
one more week to get through.
I'll be doing the same a month after that.
Yeah.
Which will be cool. It'll be nice to get away and actually have some time to not to myself because we'll still have, Xander and everything, but having some time without the little one will definitely be good.
Yeah. Plus getting away from work is always good.
Yeah, well, work's been a fucking mess lately.
Yeah. You wouldn't think golf balls would be super in demand during the winter, but considering how busy we've been,
Well, I mean, I feel like golf balls is one of those things where it's, there's always a demand because people lose them all the time.
It's not even that they lose them; it's just people are too lazy to go get them.
Also, yes.
If you want to make a fortune, just go into the woods. You'll find hundreds of the damn things.
Oh, I bet. I'm pretty sure I've heard of people doing that.
I have a friend who does it. He never has to pay for golf balls.
Yeah, it's not a bad way. For sure.
Yeah. Other than that, though, it's been there's our friend in the car. It's been a pretty on and off week. I'm just trying to get caught up on stuff. I have to, because I've been reading mostly this week. I've been trying to get back into anime as well because I really got to catch up on Spy Family and Jujutsu Kaisen before the year ends, and I got to finish Rurouni Kenshin so I can start Attack on Titan next year.
Yeah, that's definitely a must, especially since was it the 7th of January is when the last episode comes out in English?
I believe so, and by the time I get to watching it'll be out probably, so I won't have any excuse at that point. Yeah. It really just depends on how long it takes me to finish Rurouni Kenshin.
Well, you're on the Kyoto arc, aren't you?
I'm in the middle of it. I stopped because I just couldn't multitask that and reading at the same time.
Understandable. Well, I mean, I don't know if you want to just do the completionist route and go through the whole thing, but I mean, you could always take a break after Kyoto because that's where the canon stuff ends anyway.
Yeah, I might. I'll probably finish it just because I want to get the full experience, but
I get that. There's a weird arc later on where actually there's a couple. There's one that's all based around Christianity, which is kind of weird.
Of course.
Then, yeah, the bad guys are Christians. It's a crusade kind of thing. And then I think there's I don't know if you remember the Feng Shui episode of Cowboy Bebop.
I do.
There's one there's an arc that's kind of based around that too.
Okay, I'm interested. I also gotta watch. I gotta watch the 3 OVAs as well.
Those are definitely, at least the Trust and Betrayal is super worth it.
Yeah, I've heard Reflections isn't good from you and other people, so
yeah, it was just bizarre. But I mean, definitely watch it at least the one time.
Yeah, I'll probably give it. It's gonna be weird because those ones are branded as Samurai X, which was the localization name that they went with for a while. So that's gonna be it. I'm gonna have to get used to that.
Yeah, no kidding. And there won't be any Freckle song at the beginning.
No Freckle. Well, I'm past Freckles now because we're in a different intro now. But
I forgot it changed.
Yeah,
Huh.
Um, yeah, so I've I got to get through those, and then yeah, other than that, then I have no excuse after that.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited. As soon as that last episode of Attack on Titan comes out, I'm gonna start reading the manga again and go all the way through.
Mm.
I've had the last one for like a long time at this point. I've just been waiting for the rest of the anime to finish because I didn't want to spoil myself.
No, that's understandable. Uh, Kaguya-sama has one more volume left, and then that's finished over here.
Oh, like, oh, hold on. Ugh,
Bless you.
excuse me. Um, like it's gonna be done, or is it like going on hiatus, or?
No, the manga's been done for a while in Japan.
Oh, wow, wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, he finished it because he doesn't want to draw anymore. He just wants to write.
Understandable. So, what is he gonna do? Like novels or something, or?
No, he's so his current series is Oshinoko, and he's writing it, and he's got a different artist.
Oh, okay. So it's gonna be like a Death Note situation where there's a writer and an artist working on it.
Yeah, it's basically he just got tired of drawing, so now he's got an artist that's going to take care of the drawing while he writes. So that should work.
That works.
And Oshinoko is very good. Dark as
Yeah,
fuck.
I know.
It's
You've
dark as
mentioned that
fuck.
one.
Yeah, it's funny because it takes place in the Kaguya-sama universe.
Oh, really?
Well, this is a minor. It doesn't really spoil anything because it's kind of obvious, but because they're idols at one point, the character Ruby gets like a photo shoot down.
Mhm.
And she's talking about how much she loved the photographer and like how like pleasant she was, and it like you see the photographer from the back like this entire time, and then it cuts to the final image, and she's like, "What was her name again?" And then it cuts over, and it's Kaguya.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
But the key thing that you blink it or miss it is it's her name is Kaguya, but well, her full name is listed below it. It's Kaguya Shirogane,
Hmm.
so it's implying they got married.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, and I think
Uh,
Oshinoko is referenced in the Kaguya-sama manga later on as well at points. So
that would make sense. They, do a little bit on the other side of it.
yeah, they call it the Akaverse
Hmm.
because the writer's name is Aka Akasaka. So the Akaverse.
That's cool. I checked out the first episode of that live action Yu Yu Hakusho yesterday.
Is it any good or?
I mean, I enjoyed it. It definitely well, there's only 5 episodes, and apparently it's gonna be like, um, well, supposedly Netflix doesn't have any intention of making more, and apparently those 5 episodes cover like through the Dark Tournament somehow.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, obviously they had to jumble a bunch of stuff around to make it work. But the one episode I watched, I liked, and I've been seeing a lot of positive stuff. My cousin watched the whole thing, and he gave it a solid 7 out of 10. So
Hmm.
I was seeing some people say online that it's the best live action anime thing, which might be a bit of a stretch, and it's definitely like from what I saw, it's a lot more hardcore than like One Piece was.
Yeah, I mean, there's a kind of high bar now, I guess, with the One Piece to say it's the best live action, but
Mhm.
yeah, I'll check it out at some point.
Yeah, well, I only have 4 more episodes to watch, so I'll probably watch that over the weekend.
Yeah, I'll be getting smashed over the weekend, so
Yeah, we'll enjoy that.
yeah, good old ugly sweater parties.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, so I guess transitioning into our topic for this week. This one's been quite a long time coming. I think we referenced it early on in the show at one point, but we're going to be talking about the Pokemon Adventures manga.
Yes, I'm excited for this one because this is one that I feel like doesn't really get any attention, and it definitely deserves it.
It's both the most interesting and least talked about aspect of the Pokemon franchise.
Which is wild to me because there's so much like it makes the world seem so much bigger than the games or the anime make it. Like,
I have some theories on why it doesn't get a lot of attention, but we'll get into that later on. Um, so this series is interesting because like most Pokemon media, it's a completely different universe entirely. So it's not like the anime universe. It's not like the game universe. Not even the other Pokemon anime universe, which is more based off the games. It's
Yeah.
essentially it is its own unique story from beginning to end. Well, it's still ongoing to this day, but yeah, Matt, you want to give your thoughts on it?
Well, part of what I like about it is like every time a new set of games comes out, it kind of creates its own story arc with its own set of characters in the manga, and that's a really cool aspect of it because they're all pretty much self-contained, but they're also interconnected. So like it's kind of like JoJo in that way, where each section of the story has a whole different cast of characters. There might be some crossovers here and there, but mostly it focuses on whatever the new group is, and
Hmm.
that's a really cool aspect of it that I like.
It's actually kind of like the games in that sense, where they're all in the same universe, but they could all also be standalone in their own ways.
Yeah, and I think the characters are a lot more engaging and likable than anything you get in the anime.
Well, they actually age for one,
Yeah, that's true.
um, and they have personalities.
The timeline is a little bit wonky, especially compared to how Nintendo says the timeline goes in the games.
Oh no, the manga completely has its own timeline, which is
Yeah, because I think in the games, the first generation and the third generation happen at the same time.
that's how it supposedly goes. And then Gen 2 and Gen 4 also take place at the same time. And then Gen 5 is after all of that. And then after that, who knows?
Yeah,
Other than Sun and Moon takes place years after Gold and Silver because you can meet Red and Blue and they're adults.
yeah. It's I don't know. The games are really bizarre, but the manga keeps it pretty straightforward.
Well, straightforward in terms of time frame. The manga gets fucking weird very quick.
There's some really creative use of the Pokemon, though. Even just in this first little like 7 volume box set, there's all a ton of crazy shit that people do with their Pokemon.
Yeah. So I should say for this episode, we're strictly going to be covering the first, as Matt said, box set, which contains the first 7 volumes of the manga, and that is essentially the red, blue, and yellow arcs. Well, the red and blue arc, and then the yellow arc,
Yeah.
precisely. Um, and I guess to start, a little backstory on the manga itself. The manga started in '97, so this thing's been going for a long time
Yeah.
at this point.
Coming up
It,
on 30 years.
yeah, it really is, and it's crazy because the manga has had one writer its entire run, um, and that is Hidenori Kazuka. I'm sorry if I butchered that.
Mhm.
And what's cool is he's written literally the entire thing. He's still writing it to this day. Like it's crazy. The manga has had 2 artists in its time. The first 9 volumes were drawn by Mato, um, who I don't know a whole lot about. I tried doing some research on her. She basically did Pokemon Adventures, and then she got ill around volume 9 and was replaced by Satoshi Yamamoto, who's been doing the series ever since.
Mhm.
But for these volumes in particular, they were exclusively drawn by Mato, who does a very good job at replicating the original art from the series.
Oh yeah, the art style is awesome. Like I love a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, like she does a really good job at like keeping that feel, but also kind of having it feel like unique at the same time.
Oh, extremely.
Because Red in particular, he is both very similar but also drastically different from his game counterpart.
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, he talks, so I mean, there's that.
True, but even like the one from like Pokemon Origins, he's drastically like a different character from.
Yeah, he's I noticed in the beginning he's a lot more not to like the level of Blue, but he's a lot more like full of himself. Like he's kind of a braggart at the beginning.
Well, he's almost like an 11-year-old.
Yeah, right.
I think the ages are very unclear at times in this manga.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. A part of me feels like he might be 12.
12 sounds better, maybe. So I know according to the wiki, he is, as of, this is way beyond what we're talking about here, but as of his most recent appearance in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, he is apparently 20 years old now.
That makes sense.
So there is actually like time progression in this series, but I'd have to calculate how old he actually was in this series, because this was, so I guess that it's always confusing because the anime made this whole like they are 10 years old when they go on their journey bullshit, and I'm always like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of wires crossed with that.
The games always said like either 10 or 12. I mean 11 or 12, so I'm going to assume he's probably around 12 at the start of this.
Right.
Um and it's interesting because like he doesn't have a starter right away. He's got just his Poliwhirl.
Yeah, which I thought was really cool, having like he already had a Pokemon before he even got his starter, and that was like his partner throughout his childhood.
Mm. And you know what really threw me off like at the start is his starter Pokemon is Bulbasaur.
Yeah, it's really interesting how they did that, where each character, like if you were to if you were to take their names and take that as like, well, like red, so he'd be a fire type, and blue, he'd be a water type, but they actually have the Pokemon that is weak to what their namesake is.
Well, unfortunately, this only works in the American namings because in Japan, blue is green and green is blue because of because of how the game's released in like America as opposed to Japan. It caused a lot of wires to get crossed.
Yeah, well, I mean, Pokemon was very complicated coming out the gate in that
Yeah.
way. Because I believe it was red and green were the first games over in Japan, and then
Yes, and they came out in
blue.
'95.
Yeah, and I think blue was released, and that was like kind of like their way of fixing a lot of the problems and like glitches and stuff.
Yeah, because if you guys think red and blue are jank, you've never played red and green. That game, you look at it wrong and it blows up. It's so bad.
No kidding.
Yeah, blue was the fixed version over in Japan, and then our red and blue are based off of Japan's blue. And then
Yeah.
they made yellow, which further fixed everything, and then that yellow is based off of our yellow. It's confusing.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is kind of a fuck show, but
Yeah, I think the Pokemon like distribution was actually based upon there's a piece of promotional art for red and blue back, well, red and green, Japan's red and green, that actually shows red with a Venusaur and like green, sorry, I'm gonna get confused here, blue. So the rival blue, we're gonna get that right, he has a Charmander, and then green, who we'll talk about green when we get to her, has a Squirtle.
yeah,
So it was a little weird. I mean, I was okay with it because Bulbasaur is my favorite of the three Kento starters, but
that's fair. I personally, I've always been a Charmander kid, but
true. And Red's always been associated with Charmander. Like even in Pokemon Origins, he had a Charmander.
yeah, which it caught me off guard when I read this for the first time, and he had a Bulbasaur. It was really weird to me.
I like how he gets it too, where he essentially breaks into Professor Oak's lab, and he's not there to steal anything. He's just looking around, and then he accidentally releases all the Pokemon.
Like an idiot.
And then he has to go help him get them back. And in the process, he he befriends the Bulbasaur that he saw there.
Mm-hmm.
And Professor Oak's basically like, it already likes you. You can keep it.
Pretty much, yeah. Because I think it had issues trusting
Yeah, it was
people or whatever. And just for some reason, it took to red.
yeah, it had it just like, I think Oak like his claims like he couldn't find a trainer for it because it was difficult or something.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
Makes
Professor
sense.
Oak is like weirdly like edgy in this show for whatever reason,
Yeah,
or
right.
the manga, I should say.
Honestly, like a lot of the characters are a lot more like. I mean, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I mean, the first time we meet Misty, she's like all bloodied up and shit.
Yeah, that's true. Um, Yeah, but it's kind of interesting because like at first the manga feels a lot like the games where like Red gets his Venusaur, well, his Bulbasaur, and so he's got Bulbasaur and Poliwhirl, and then they go straight into Viridian Forest, and he gets a well, he got Pikachu because the Pikachu was terrorizing the forest, was it? Or
Let me look. Do, 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 do. Apparently, I did not take a note on that.
I know the Pikachu was being a terror because Pikachu's a little shithead in the manga at first.
Yeah, it takes him a while to kind of to warm up to people.
Yeah, like because he was kind of a dick in like the anime as well, but like in the manga, he's just straight up a little shit the first couple volumes. Like he doesn't listen to Red at all. He's just kind of like a perpetual grump the entire time.
Yeah,
And
I feel like it isn't until he fights Brock that Pikachu kind of starts coming around.
well, because he saves the Pikachu from like getting hit by something, and then it kind of realizes that Red's not such a bad guy.
Yeah.
Um, Also, the dynamic between Red and Blue is interesting because Blue is so the anime Gary is just straight up a prick, and his game counterpart, the Blue in the games, is also kind of just an ass for no reason. In the manga, he's still an ass, but he's kind
Mhm.
of like they kind of have a dynamic that I like where they're kind of both like he's more confident than just downright an asshole right away, and he's at the time better than Red in most ways because he's more experienced, so he just comes off as kind of a dick, but he's more just better, which I thought was different.
Yeah, he's more stoic than like honestly, I feel like Red is more of a like a braggart at the beginning, and then like later on Blue kind of like I don't he definitely has a little bit more of like a Vegeta streak in him. Like
Yeah.
he's not a total asshole, but he's still kind of like he's like, yeah, I'll help you, but just because it benefits me.
Well, there's like a moment later in the series where they get their Pokeballs like mixed up by mistake.
I love that whole bit.
Well, what's funny is like they drop their Pokeballs and they just happen to grab just exactly the opposite person's, not like a mixed match, which
Yeah.
comic logic, but and you get this like funny training arc where like Red trains all of Blue's Pokemon his way, and then Blue trains all of Red's Pokemon his way, which is more like uptight, and Red's style is more like nurturing.
Hmm.
And they actually reference the whole idea of trade evolutions because Blue has a Machamp, and it once it trades it back to Blue, it evolves into a Machoke, and he's like,
Other way
"Oh,
around.
oh,
Machoke and Machamp.
whatever." I never used that line, so. But
Fair
he
enough.
makes a point. I was like, "Wow, I could never get it to evolve."
But then also because this happened right after Blue won the Porygon from the Game Corner, right? So it was like a whole thing where like, oh, this one's gonna be a lot harder to train than if you know caught it yourself. But then like Red ends up with it almost instantly, and that kind of warms it up a lot.
Yeah, and then like Blue like go puts all of Red's Pokemon through like this arduous training, and then they get back and they're all like super serious, and Red's like,
Yeah, they're like
"What happened?"
chasing Red around and shit.
Yeah, he's like, "What happened?"
Yeah.
Also, Red is just ungodly good at catching Pokemon in this.
Yeah, well, I mean, there will be another in the next box set who is like
Yeah.
the one who's like wicked good at catching stuff. But
What I find funny is though, like if you look at the wiki page, like listing all of Red's Pokemon, it has all of his main ones, and then you go down farther, and it just has this list of like random Pokemon Red caught at one point or another.
well, I mean, even just looking at like the like what 2 or 3 chapters that he was in the Safari Zone
Yeah, and he caught the almost the entire place.
for real, and he just like he's like the king of the forest by the end of it. Like, and they're all worried that he got eaten by a victory bell or some shit.
Yeah. So I was we had mentioned this like off topic at one point earlier in a previous recording session, but I commented how I gave Ash a lot of shit for like his ridiculous ways he gets all the badges throughout the anime. And
Hmm.
after reading this, I kind of give him a bit of a pass now because Red in the manga gets them in the most fucking ridiculous ways possible too.
That's true, but in a lot of ways, I feel like it kind of makes sense with this format and like this particular story. because the
Yeah,
badges are a lot more important than they were in the anime or even in the games, really.
yeah, they're more. They have a purpose in the manga. It's kind of ridiculous what that purpose is later on. You find out, but they actually have like different reasons. Also, they're like it feels like there's like only like a limited amount of them now, as opposed to like where there's kind of just infinite ones in like the game slash anime.
Yeah, because it seems like they just have like a stockpile of them in the anime and the games where they just hand them out whenever they happen to lose. But here it's like, I mean, jumping around a little bit, like towards the end of this box set, it's like there's this huge raid going on all these cities trying to find the badges, and it's like I feel like it shouldn't be that hard to bump into somebody who has some,
Yeah. I also like how some of like the so he literally gets like Brock's badge identically to how Ash got the badge using Pikachu against Onyx, which when I saw that, I'm like, God, I was like, for fuck's sake, like again.
Yeah, that bothered me too. But I feel like they kind of move away from like the like at least that level of like ridiculous, like beating a ground type with an electric type. Like that makes no sense.
Yeah. He
But
also gets Misty's badge off screen because you don't actually see him win.
yeah, that was kind of weird. I never noticed that the first time reading it. I was going through it this time, and I realized it just went to the next chapter. And he just had it.
Well, I thought he lost initially because I was like, oh, I guess he'll have to face her again, and then also needs to. He just has the badge, and I was like, oh, okay. um, Another thing too I find interesting is like it's a running recurrence that I notice where like Brock as a character is nothing like he is in the anime.
No, and he goes with like the original design from the games where he just has no shirt for no reason.
Well, it makes sense because like the Mato's art is definitely based off of the original red and green slash red and blue artwork.
Yeah.
And the anime I don't believe debuted until like much later on. What's funny though is like even like in the games, Brock is pretty normal. In the manga, he's pretty normal. In Pokemon Origins, he's incredibly normal. But then the
Yeah.
anime, they made him a fucking weirdo for no reason.
Yeah, right? That just came out of nowhere.
Like it's the version of Brock that everybody knows, but it's actually like the only version that's like that.
Yeah. He's just a dude in all the other ones.
He's like serious in all the other ones, which is really interesting to me. It's just funny, like going into this like for the first time after only really knowing the anime and game universes for like most of my gameplay experience. It was. I will say this manga hooks you in because it is very. It subverts all your expectations about Pokemon. I will say.
Oh, absolutely. And like it creates a lot of its own lore along the way too, which is really cool.
I also like how like he visits Viridian City Gym early on, and it's like a fucking dump.
Yeah, I think that's where he found the Bulbasaur when he was trying to track down all the Pokemon he
Yeah,
let
I
out.
believe so.
Um,
But it going through that, like another character. So we got introduced to Misty as well. Misty is actually pretty interesting compared to her uh, anime counterpart as well.
Way more likable.
Yeah, significantly. Which says a lot because she isn't really that unlikable in the anime either.
But she just shouts a lot.
Well, I mean that was '90s anime,
True.
but yeah, her dynamic with Red's pretty funny because like she's kind of got like a tough love approach to him on a lot of things.
Yeah, but then also there's some points where it kind of seems like she's trying to court him.
Red gets courted a lot in this series, from what I've noticed. There's been at least 3 characters I've seen. So actually, no, almost 4. We'll get to that
Yeah.
later, though.
Yeah.
They're 12, by the way.
Well, that's the other reason why I know that they have to be like at least 11, 12, because all the female characters have like boobs.
Yeah, some more than others.
Yeah.
We'll get to her in a few minutes, but yeah. So Misty was interesting. I actually really like Misty in this.
Yeah, she's definitely a lot more competent too.
Well, I like how like she goes on the journey through Mount Moon with Red, and like the whole like thing with like also Team Rocket are like sadistic assholes in this universe. Like they like experiment on their Pokemon.
Oh yeah, like with the whole thing with Eevee.
Eevee and Misty's Gyarados that later becomes Red's Gyarados, where it was like it
Mhm.
was like sociopathic when we first see it in the manga, and apparently it wasn't like that.
Yeah, well, that was what I referred to earlier when the first time we meet Misty and she's all bloodied up. It's because
Yeah,
she was trying to get back her Gyarados that was experimented on by Team Rocket, and it's like losing its mind and attacking her and shit.
yeah, it's interesting, and it's funny too because by this point, like it was still pretty much following the games, pretty like note for note. Like I didn't like see any sort of like weirdness yet. What I find interesting too is like they kind of subtly show like progression in the background. Like you'll see like Blue will appear, and his Pokemon will be evolved at certain points. Like it almost feels like you're watching an actual game going on.
Yeah, for sure. I did
Um,
find it interesting that we saw Mew like almost instantly.
yeah, which is I like that more than like how Ash randomly saw Ho-Oh in like the first episode because Ho-Oh would make more sense for like Gen 2. Like Gen
Yeah,
1, Mew is like the super rare one.
well, later on we do find out that Ho-Oh does play a part in the story, even though we don't actually see it.
True.
Ho-Oh and Lugia, actually.
Yeah, because there was some foreshadowing going on for the next arc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so another thing I guess we should get to her. Uh, Green. Green is an
Yes.
interesting character in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So for backstory, Green is one of the most confusing characters in Pokemon, like just in general. Because in the early games, she was a dummied out character that never made the final cut of the game.
Wasn't
Because
it?
there,
Oh, sorry. What wasn't it a thing that they originally were going to make you able to be a girl in the original games, and then they just didn't do it for some reason?
so there is like that concept art I mentioned earlier that I believe the starter choice came from. That concept art shows red, blue, and a unnamed female character in a like little black dress with a Venusaur, and that character is essentially the basis for what would eventually become the game character. This is where it gets confusing because canonically she's unnamed, but like the fandom just refers to her as a Leaf
Mm-hmm.
because Leaf Green. Um, but her design is 100% lifted from that original concept art, which was like the little black dress look, which is what she has in the manga at first.
Yeah, and her weird Mickey Mouse gloves.
She had that in the concept art as well, I believe.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and her introduction is she literally seduces Red into buying a bunch of junk, and then
Yeah.
runs off.
I love the gag though, where he's just like, "Huh, it's not working. Maybe I'll just have to use more." And then he like dresses Pikachu up like a, I don't know, like a samurai or something with all
Yeah.
this random junk on him.
Also, what's hilarious is Red has like no concept of females up until this point in the manga, and then
Mhm.
I might if I refer to her as Leaf, that's just because I'm used to that. But when Green shows up, she he's straight up like, "Ooh, pretty girl," and just immediately does everything,
Yeah, right.
which
But then
is
she ends up just being a total crook and, cheating him out. She steals his badges and then she gives them back, but really they were fakes.
she dupes him so many times in the series, and he keeps falling for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what happens when you're like the the good trusting, like, because he's that kind of main character where he's all about like, trust your Pokemon, trust your friends, blah blah blah. And then you got Blue, who's just the stoic one who trains a lot alone.
Yeah,
And
Blue
then
wants like nothing to do with the main plot. He's just on his adventure.
yeah, he just bumps into them occasionally. He's like, "Oh God, you guys again?"
Well, my favorite is when they're trying to get into I think it's Saffron City,
Hmm.
because it has the force field over it. He's trying to fly in, and then he just sees like Green with her Jigglypuff off to the side, and he's like, "Who the fuck is that?"
Yeah, because she's trying to get in too. And also, I love that that's how she gets around. Is she just kind of floats around with the Jigglypuff?
Yeah. Yeah, Green is I like Green a lot because she's like so unpredictable.
Yeah,
Oh,
it'll get a lot more so like as you go further along in the
well,
series too.
the stinger at the end of this arc kind of gives away that there's a lot going on there, but
Mhm.
I find it interesting too that her backstory, I know it gets deeper because I've seen some minor spoilers, but her backstory at this point that's given to us is she was from Pallet Town, got kidnapped by birds, and then came back years later and
Yeah,
stole. So it's implied that like Professor Oak mentions that his two starters that he had besides Bulbasaur were already taken. He says Blue has the other, and then the other one was stolen.
yeah,
And
which
then
does create a really good parallel between her and her partner, so to speak, that behind the
yeah,
curtain.
yeah, we'll get to him in the next episode probably, but yeah. So it's like a it's implied that one was stolen, and then we see Green uses a war turtle at one point, and it's immediately you kind of click it clicks in your head. You go, oh, that's where the stolen one went.
Yeah, because Oak tells Red like almost immediately before he meets her.
Yeah, it was basically like foreshadowing in a way. Um,
Mhm.
I think we should get into well actually the SS Anne kind of happens before this.
Yeah, which and this is when we really start learning like, oh, not all the Jimmy leaders are good guys.
Yeah, Lieutenant Surge is a fucking asshole in this one.
Yeah, for real. But I don't know. Some of the stuff that he does, I was really like. I know this is like way further, but like when he's fighting Red in Saffron, and he's got like the fucking Voltorb rocket launcher, and he's got them all lined up like grenades on his chest, and he's got
Yeah,
and he had something else too. I forget what it was, but oh yeah, he like had like a well like that like battery jumpers attached to a fucking Zapdos.
sure. Why not?
Like
Why not?
it's like what the hell?
Yeah, he kind of gets redeemed later on, and so does. So there, three of the gym leaders are not good people. Well, four technically. The other one though is obvious, but three of the gym leaders you wouldn't expect are like villains in this initially. It's Lieutenant Surge, Sabrina, and Koga. Koga's the least interesting of these three, I'd say.
True. But I mean, based on the things we know about the later games, like you kind of know he's going to become more important.
Yeah. Sabrina is interesting to me in this one because she just wears a Team Rocket uniform the entire time.
Yeah, she's real committed to the Team Rocket thing.
Yeah. And she's got jealousy issues with Green, which I thought was kind of amusing.
Yeah, I really liked a lot of that dynamic.
Yeah, this manga, I will say one thing that's a little weird considering the age of the characters. This manga is very sexualized in a lot of ways, which is kind of interesting, I'd say.
It's also very Japan.
That's true. I mean, none of it's like explicit or anything, but there's Green uses her sex appeal a lot, and I'm like, you're 13, like
Yeah,
12, like
however old you are.
what are you doing here?
Yeah, I definitely get that. But I mean, even when you look at like, I know it's like a really hard to find here, but when you look at like the Japanese, like the original Japanese dub of the Pokemon
Pokemon.
anime, it was a lot like that too.
Well, James and his inflatable boobs.
Yeah. Just for one example.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's really funny to me in what's a manga that's well, there's a lot of reasons why I find this off-putting, but this manga is commonly found in the kids section.
well,
So
it is rated E. It is like for kids, but
true. It's
no
just
no pun intended.
it's unintentionally dark in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, extremely. I mean, the Lavender Town stuff was
Yeah.
fucking wild.
Lavender so when I got to Lavender Town, that was like my first like oh shit moment when I was reading this manga.
Yeah.
Because I knew it got weird as it went on, like bizarre, but like I didn't expect it to be that quick. So we get to Lavender Town, and Lavender Town itself has always been kind of a darker like concept for the Pokemon franchise in general.
Mhm.
But when we got to Lavender Town and they're going through the Pokemon Tower, and then all of a sudden, fucking zombie Psyducks that are straight up decomposing, I was like, for kids.
Yeah, no kidding. And then you see the Arbok get chopped in half, and even though they kind of like retcon it later on, like, oh no, that it didn't actually die, but
There
it
was an
was still
Arbok.
pretty fucked.
There was an Arbok gets chopped in half. There's a Magmar gets straight up, like, I think that one does straight up get cut in half.
Yeah,
The one Giovanni cuts in half.
yeah. I think he froze them and then shattered them.
Yeah, and it was like, I was like, what the hell? I was like, okay, Pokemon just die in this manga on screen. That's fine.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, I won't give anything away, but in later arcs, like actual characters will die as well.
Oh, I bet they will.
Yeah. So I mean, like, yeah, it is for kids, and it is. I mean, Japan has different standards about what's okay for kids and what's not.
I know.
So
It's just it's not even that. It's like not even that. I think it's because I have like different goggles when it has to do with Pokemon of all things. Because Pokemon has always been more kid centric.
especially our version of it,
Yeah, especially after watching the anime, which is incredibly kid centric.
because 4Kids took what was already a kid show and made it even more kid friendly.
Yeah, and I mean the games are very the plot is not the heaviest thing in the games. Let's just say.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that they didn't do anything with like the Marowak ghost or the Cubone.
Yeah, they went with zombie Psyducks instead, which I thought was different.
It's pretty dark.
Yeah. When I saw those things decomposing, I snapped a shot and posted it to all the servers, and I was like, this manga gets wild real quick.
No kidding. There's like eyeballs popping out and whatnot.
Yeah, there's also so we mentioned the SS Anne earlier, and that has another one of my favorite jokes. The SS Anne goes through some shit in this manga.
Oh yeah, multiple
Straight
times.
It straight up gets cut in half and sinks at one point.
Yeah.
But there's a running joke with the Pokemon fan club president where like his Abra was stolen, and there's a really funny joke where he finally gets it back, and it's since evolved into an Alakazam, and he's very upset about this.
Yeah, right. But then like he later gets a passion for battling and thinks it's awesome, so he's like kind of gets over it. But
yeah,
I did want to bring up something about that. Well, first of all, he will be, at least as far as I've read, he shows up in every arc. Like, going forward into the like later box sets and stuff. But I took a note about this. Where is it? Because when he goes to the SSN, there's when he first meets the Pokemon fan club guy, he's looking at a newspaper, and it says something like in big captions it said a story of Pokemon love, and beneath that it said, "That's the last time I'll take a bath with my Tentacool." And I just wanted to point that out. Like I don't know if I want to know the story there or not, but at the same time I'm intrigued. Like, what is the story with that? Like, how do you just put that there and then not call any attention to it? Like,
I think that's an inside joke that Motto threw in just to see if anyone noticed.
It might be. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a strange decision to take a bath with anything with tentacles, but
yeah, that's just Japan being Japan.
Yeah. But yeah, I just had to call attention to that because when I was reading through it this time, that caught my attention, and I was just like, "What the fuck?"
Oh, and if people are wondering why it feels this like recap kind of feels disjointed, it's because the plot is kind of disjointed as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was so much going on in both of these arcs that trying to hit all the main points note for note would be, not only would it take a long time, but I feel like it would kind of be dry to talk about.
What's funny is like it follows the games pretty spot on for like the first couple couple volumes, and then it just goes on this weird like at one point he's on Cinnabar Island, and then the next point he's in Saffron City, and then suddenly he's back in a pallet town all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. And then like some of the like I mentioned before, like some of the ways that they use Pokemon in this is just wild. Like how Koga uses his Pokemon like ninja tools.
Yeah,
Like he's got like Golbats on his wrists, like like blades. And then what was the other thing he was doing? So I know he had the Arbok, and that its whole thing was like it could regenerate.
Yeah.
He had something else too. What was it? I can't remember.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Let's see. Where's Koga? Oh yeah, the Grimer armor.
Oh yeah, that was it. That was weird.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I will say there was another interesting thing that happens earlier on. We kind of mentioned it where Red is just like going through one of the caves with Giovanni.
Yeah, I think it was Diglett Cave. He's just randomly going, hanging
There's
out together.
We don't even see like a build up to this. It's just all of a sudden you turn to the next page and he's just chilling with Giovanni, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, and they're like chuckling and shit. One of the things that I haven't mentioned yet is that like even the adults kind of have like a chibi-ish look.
That's very much Mato's like style, because I've looked at some of the later art for the later volumes Yamamoto does, and they're much more realistically proportioned later on.
Yeah. That's just one of those things I noticed, because Red's like, 11, 12 years old, and he's standing next to Giovanni, and they're like not that different in height.
Giovanni straight up looks like his in-game artwork.
Yeah, right.
Which is really funny. I love how he's like acting all super nice though when he's chilling with Red, and then the second Red leaves, he fucking cuts him fucking Magmar in half, and it's like, he is still evil.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah, fuck this, whatever.
Giovanni's like allegiance has always been like confusing, to be honest. Anyways,
yeah. So yeah, we talked about the three bad gym leaders, but there was actually, aside from Giovanni, there was a fourth. Because Blaine was originally a member of Team Rocket.
Oh yeah, Blaine was reformed. Also, we discover his mustache is completely fake.
Well, I think it was real at first, but then it got burned off.
Yeah, he just has a fake one as a backup. It's like, okay.
I did think it was kind of cool though, because when he did that, it was when he had the fake, or he took the fake mustache off and put the wig on. It was his design from when Ash fought him in the anime.
Yeah, that was weird. Not the manga. The manga was clever. The anime version of Blaine was weird. I'm not gonna lie.
The riddle thing. Well, I mean, the riddle thing made sense because that actually was his thing in the original game, but it's still, I don't know. This is a strange situation.
Yeah, Blaine was definitely very much more fleshed out in the manga, I will say.
Yeah, I really like a lot of the stuff with Mewtwo and Blaine.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that in the latter half of this. But another character we completely forgot to mention was Bill.
Oh yeah, Bill Tata.
Yeah, yeah, we actually get to see that abomination.
Yeah, that was disturbing.
We actually, I mean, hello, Mr. Carr.
Yeah.
That was actually kind of a disturbing scene as well, because you actually see him like get stuck in the machine, and he's like, "Oh no, this is gonna be bad."
Yeah, wasn't he like trying to drag like a stick back to that? I think he was like trying to figure out how to like press the button and get himself separated or something. But like he was just, Red stumbles upon him just dragging a stick, and then like Red goes to catch him.
Yeah, because Red catches everything on sight.
Pretty much.
Also, I like the way they portray Pokeballs in this universe, where you can actually see the Pokemon in the ball.
Yeah, like you can kind of like interact with them and talk to them while they're in the Pokeball. But it also kind of like breaks up any child's theory about what it's like inside of a Pokeball. It's like, nah, it's just actually boring as fuck. You're basically just in a tiny little capsule. Like,
also, Pokeballs work weird in this universe. Like in the anime, they made this whole like thing about how like you couldn't use someone else's Pokeball because it was tied to them.
mm-hmm.
And like you couldn't catch someone else's Pokemon if they were already caught.
Yeah.
In this one, the Pokeballs seem to be like inconsequential, because there's like points where they break and then they just get another one. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Also,
it's
like
really
you can
weird
just
how that works. And then like
Red and Blue just switched their Pokemon, and it's considered a trade, even though in the anime they had this whole convoluted like machine you had to use for trading.
Yeah. That was weird. The anime just kind of I don't know. The anime just put so much of like an expectation on us that I think at the point where we actually started reading the manga for the first time, it was just so bizarre switching like to that style of it.
Yeah, like well, it's weird because the anime was really the only thing that any most kids like saw with Pokemon because it was everywhere at the time.
Hmm.
And this manga also was not the easiest thing to come across back in the day.
Yeah. I'm
Like
not
especially
I don't even know when it was released over here originally.
I'm assuming not till like around like 99.
Hmm.
I that's my guess just because the games didn't come out over here until 99 anyways.
With that being said, like back then, like manga wasn't super available.
Okay, so the first volume released over here in 2000.
Okay.
So
So still earlier than I thought, but still pretty late considering.
yeah, and manga was not easy, as you were saying, was not super easy to find around here either at the time.
Yeah. The manga section in Borders was not as big as it ended up being.
Yeah. Well, I don't even think Borders exists anymore now that I think about it.
I wasn't even sure. I wasn't sure if we just don't have Borders around here anymore, or if they're just gone
I
overall.
I think Borders is gone. I know Barnes and Noble's like the one that's left.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, there's not a lot of bookstores period anymore.
which is a shame.
But anyways, so going back to Pokemon Adventures, it- what's funny too is like some of the badges he literally gets them in the sense of like it's literally like the comedic like yoink. He just gets like I think he gets like surges literally by just going like yoink. This is mine now.
Well, I think that's part of like the whole thing with at least with the like the bad gym leaders, like it's not like he was going to challenge them in like actual battles or anything like official gym leader battles. Like at that point, the only way he was going to get him was to just take him,
Yeah, because like he gets Koga's badge because Blue steals it from Koga and then just gives it to Red.
which is weird. You'd think they would just each have their own, but I guess they only carry one each.
Yeah,
Like each gym leader only carries one badge, like it's a sacred object or something.
yeah. I didn't really understand that they were because it seemed like Brock had multiple and Misty had multiple as well.
Yeah, it's just really yeah because Red had his own copies, but then later on, when in the second arc, there was all the different raids and all the different towns, and you see them with other badges.
Yeah, I don't. The badges don't make any sense in this first arc. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is like the main arc where they're really important to my memory, at least.
Yeah, and they're and they're completely bizarre.
Yeah, but I do like that. After Green steals Red's first two badges, and like, you find out later that she gave him back fakes, but I think that kind of shows like Red's growth in a lot of ways um, because when the badges are first introduced in the manga, it explains that all the like stat boosts and stuff from the games actually are in the manga. So like Brock's badge actually does increase your Pokemon's attack stat and things like that. So he didn't have that like extra boost throughout pretty much the whole first arc.
Yeah,
So I thought that was interesting when I actually like sat and thought about it.
yeah. He also doesn't get he doesn't get his Venusaur evolved until like way later on because like stays an Ivysaur for a while.
Yeah, I don't think that happens until the battle at Saffron, and he was the last one out of the three to evolve it all the way.
Yeah, I also like how they all give their Pokemon goofy names, which is kind of cute.
Yeah, that will become a much more consistent thing later on with other characters.
He
'Cause
also
I
has
think,
he has an Aerodactyl, which I think is interesting.
which is actually kind of cool because the little like powwow that he had with Giovanni earlier, like Giovanni was actually the one who gave him the old Amber in the first place.
Yeah, that was kind of a cool idea. I just like it's just Red's team is so fucking weird to me. In the
Yeah, because
manga.
it's what like his like official quote unquote team in the manga is like what it's Aerodactyl,
Polygraph,
Snorlax.
snore.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
Polygraph.
the Snorlax because he's doing that
The bike race.
the bike race and it's in the way, so he just
Yeah.
catches it.
See, like I think he was it like he wakes it up somehow because he didn't have a poke flute or anything, so he woke it up and um he ended up winning the race, but it ate all of his winnings,
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
which is silly as hell.
The funny part too is like during that race, like Red just fucking like cheats. Well, he spends the rules like to win the race basically.
Yeah, because he like takes a shortcut. But I mean, I don't think there was any overt rules about what path you take as long as you know end up at the finish line at the end.
Yeah, he just took the hard. That's why I said he kind of bended the rules. Like he just kind of took the harder path, but it was quicker.
Yeah. So how did you feel about like because at the beginning it kind of takes more of an episodic you know like chapter of the week kind of take, and then later on it kind of builds more of a narrative where all the different chapters make up a story. Which side of that did you prefer? Did you like the episodic stuff or?
I kind of like the episodic more, just in terms of how it was much easier to follow. Because one of my criticisms of the series, at least for this early part, is it got really confusing on the later half of the story.
Yeah.
Well, because they also tell stuff out of order, which also doesn't help either.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because like later on, like when there were multiple battles happening at the same time, it kind of like jumps between them. Whereas earlier on, it would focus on one group and then it would go to the next group afterwards.
Yeah. I will say though, one thing about this that I do really like is this manga has a tendency to like making callbacks to earlier events
Mm-hmm.
that you really have to pay attention to, because like one of them, this is jumping ahead a bit, but one of the most shocking moments in this entire manga is so early on in the manga it's implied that so one of Green's Pokemon is she has a Ditto, and she
Mm-hmm.
uses that Ditto to basically fuck with everybody because like she'll have it transform into something and then she'll like trick people into thinking it's that, and then she'll be like psych, and then like we'll move on basically.
Yeah.
But there's a very what the fuck scene later on in the manga where Green and Sabrina are like chained together with ice, like frozen together with ice.
Yeah, it's like a voodoo doll kind of
Yeah,
thing.
and because of this, like the ice breaks and Green's arm straight up comes off.
Hmm.
Like she has a stub like hanging out of her like dress, and I remember seeing that and I was like, "What the fuck is this manga now?"
For real.
And then like it was so bad to the point where I literally was like sharing it around. I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "This manga gets weird really quick."
Oh
And
yeah.
like I was like, "Hold," I'm like, "Did Green just lose her arm?" Like what? But then immediately you turn the page and it's a fake out. It was the Ditto. Like her arm was the Ditto, and like she was hiding her arm in the jacket.
Yeah. And like even Sabrina didn't know. She was like, you were okay with us just being chained together. That you didn't even tell me we were chained together the
Yeah,
whole time, and I was dragging
Sabrina,
you around because of a Ditto. Like,
Sabrina was super butthurt about it. And Sabrina already has like issues with Green, which is great.
yeah, it's pretty funny. That's one thing I'll say is a lot of the humor is definitely on point.
Oh yeah, that like literally got me because I was like super like I was like, what the fuck is this manga? And then I turned the page and I'm like, you son of a bitch. I'm like,
You got me
well,
again.
I was like, well played, Green, well played. It's a
Geez.
pretty shocking scene though. Literally, you just see her arm like break off, and then it hits the ground, and then she literally just has this hanging stub on the next chapter, and it's like, well, next like page, and you're like, what?
Yeah. It's definitely like those kinds of fake outs. Like even though like by the end of it, you know that it was a fake out and like all that kind of thing. It's still like in the moment feels wicked dark when it happens.
I was joking with some people on the a couple servers, but I was like, this manga's got dismemberment in it. Like it's got everything going on here.
No kidding. And then there was a fake out earlier on with with the Polyrath,
Yeah,
where like you think that a Firo like impaled the Polyrath.
but then it was Ditto.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. Or no, I think in that case it was like a double team, like it was an after everything.
Oh, right. Yep, that's true. She does use the Ditto to do similar things, though,
Yeah, like a lot.
including change her disguise herself as Sabrina.
Yeah, that was interesting. So that's an interesting. I wanted to bring up. What was your favorite like out there use of a Pokemon? Like
Uh, hmm.
at least up to this point, like what, like all the crazy shit that people do with their Pokemon to get around problems and stuff. Like what was one that like you were like fuck yeah when you saw it?
I mean, I really enjoyed like Blue using his Golduck as just like a fucking platform over the sea.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. But how he like it was like hydro pumping and he was just kind of like elevated in the air.
Oh, I like how Green uses a Blasty to just fucking hover.
Yeah, it's just like short distances she could just fucking like a rocket.
Also, anytime they have to fly somewhere, it's always great because you got Red with Aerodactyl, Blue with Charizard, and then Green's just floating there with Jigglypuff.
Yeah, she's either if she's going short distances, she just uses the Blastoise thing. But if she's gonna be up in the air for a while, she's just floating around on a Jigglypuff.
And this manga uses like anime logic where like she's running around in a fucking little dress, but you never see anything because artists
Yes,
for kids.
yes. But I'm trying to think if there's any other main characters from that first arc that we haven't touched on yet.
Um, I'm trying to think. I think we covered. Oh, forgot Erica.
Oh right. Well, I mean, well, she kind of did a fake out too because she kind of made it seem like she was a bad guy at first. Because that was actually how Red got his Eevee.
Yeah,
Um,
Eevee's weird in the manga as well.
that's one of my favorite things out of this first set of volumes is how the Eevee had been also experimented on by Team Rocket and can just kind of shift between the evolutions, but then be able to still revert back to Eevee.
Yeah,
It's
that
a
was
really cool
interesting.
idea.
Hmm. I also like the fact that she basically fake. I love the way she fakes him out, where she's basically like, after he like goes like through the whole journey, gets the Eevee, and then he's like, "This is wrong. What's wrong with you?" And she's like, "Oh, good, you succeeded. Here's my badge."
No, this is a test all along. You can keep the Eevee, by the way.
Yeah, be gone now. And then
Yeah,
she
pretty
keeps
much.
coming back, and then she keeps coming back.
So were you jumping back a little bit when the SSN stuff was going on? Were you like a little confused when the Poly World just kind of evolved into a Polyrath out of nowhere?
Yeah, I was like, "Where's the water stone?" Oh no, it doesn't need a water stone, does it? No, it doesn't need
Yeah, it
one,
does.
does it? Oh, does it?
It does.
Oh,
Yeah, it's Waterstone because then uh Polyrath is a Waterstone and then Polytoad is the King's Rock, I think.
King's trade with the King's Rock. Yeah, I couldn't remember
Um,
if Poliwrath was just a level up evolution or if you needed a water stone or not.
no, that was a Waterstone one, but then that gets explained later on.
Oh yeah, because don't they go underwater and the water stone's missing or something?
Yeah, the water, fire, and electric. They're like there was four of them: water, fire, electric, and grass, and they were like special evolution stones that never run out.
Ah,
So that was kind of like how later on he's like, even though the EV chip is gone or whatever, and he can use those to kind of control which form EV is in.
gotcha. Yeah, okay, that makes sense then. Yeah, because Poliwrath just pops out of nowhere and it's like, oh, it's Poliwrath now.
Yeah. I remember the first time I read that, I was really confused. And then, they explain it away a few volumes later, but
Yeah.
um,
Getting on to like now the actual championship like battle at the Pokemon Indigo Plateau or whatever it is. They the way that they like So the gyms like, do the gyms even have anything to do with the championship at this point?
I don't think so, because I mean, to my knowledge, Red is the only one who actually has badges
Yeah,
out of at least those three. And then Professor Oak wasn't going around getting
yeah.
badges.
That. Oh yeah, we'll get to that. Oh yeah, we also didn't talk about him facing off against Giovanni and literally obliterating the Viridian City gym.
Yeah, right. That was ridiculous. Oh, we didn't even talk about the fucking birds.
Oh yeah, they're all there.
When it turns out that EV was just a testing ground so that they could figure out a way to combine the three legendary birds into like a three-headed monstrosity.
This manga gets so fucking weird.
It's so bizarre, but it's such a fun read.
They all casually just have legendary birds too.
Yeah, no kidding.
Which is, it's always confused me. Is there only one of each bird or is there multiple? Because it's always unclear in the series.
I'm pretty sure it goes with the game where there's only one.
Okay, because I know the anime kind of made it seem like there was multiple, but
Well, at least with the anime, it was weird because, especially when like the movies made it even weirder too. But
well, because the movie 2000 had like there was the Articuno, and it made it seem like that was the only Articuno. But then like in Battle Frontier, there's like a one of the Frontier brains just has an Articuno, and it's like, wait a minute.
yeah, and I'm pretty sure there was also an episode in the Johto League section of the anime where Ash just happens to find a baby Lugia.
Oh yeah, that also the one I hated the most was the fucking during the Sinnoh Championship, Ash faces off against that guy with the fucking Darkrai.
Jeez.
And then his
Yeah.
next Pokemon after the Darkrai gets defeated is a fucking Latios. So I was like, what the fuck? Like, really?
Yeah, I didn't get that far in the end. I kind of fell off after the four kids' voices changed was when I fell off.
I watched all the way through Sinnoh, and then once they got to Black and White, ironically, the game I like the most, like one of the games I like the most, I was completely just uninterested in the anime adaptation.
Yeah. Well, by that point, I was kind of losing interest in Pokemon as a whole anyway.
Yeah,
I was kind
same.
of just getting to that age where I was kind of growing out of it a little bit.
Everybody,
I think
every
the
Pokemon
last game
I was gonna say every Pokemon fan goes through Pokemon burnout at one point.
yeah, well, I'm still in a Pokemon burnout after that last uh, big stint of Pokemon that I had over the past, I don't even know how many years. Because
Yeah.
there was a point where I had like a little group of friends and we were all going through the original games and working together to catch them all and stuff. And I went all the way through Gen 6 doing that. And then by that point, I was so burnt out. And then Sun came out, Sun and Moon, and that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. So I kind of stopped playing after that.
Yeah, I've been burned out of Pokemon since Sun and Moon. I still say I only got 5 minutes into Sun before I put it down.
Yeah. But where was I going with that?
Oh yeah, we were talking about how. So we had mentioned the battle with Giovanni just and the birds, like we talked about those. We were getting over to the championship battle because I wanted to talk about Professor Oak pulling a Master Roshi.
Yeah, and his weird like bondage mask.
Yeah, what the hell was with that?
I don't know. I don't know who he thought he was fooling with that, especially with his grandson there and everything. But it's like what it wasn't even a mask. It was just like a bunch of like leather straps wrapped around his face. But you can still completely see his face and know who it was. It's so weird.
Jackie Chun was much more convincing.
Oh, extremely.
But my favorite part of Oak fighting in the championship is like literally the one scene where where he's facing off against Green, and he just gets right up behind her and he just goes, "Stealing's wrong."
Yeah,
It's like, what?
It was too funny. But I love I feel like the whole reason that he did that, like joined up in that tournament, was just to lecture Green.
Yeah.
Because instantly after that fight, when he wins, he just bows out. It's just like, yeah, Red and Blue's match is now the final. I'm done. See ya.
Yeah. He's like, I'm good. Here's your Pokédex, and then leaves.
And I love that him withdrawing after that, like Green starts taking credit of being the third place
Yeah, and they all point out that it's like, well, you technically got fourth, but
Yeah, it was just funny. But I like how the way that that whole thing closes out was like how like Red's like empathy and sympathy as a person kind of rubbed off on Blue, and then Blue his like kind of hard training and analytical mind kind of rubbed off on Red. They kind of like learned from each other's best qualities.
yeah, they very much have the Goku Vegeta energy going on.
Yeah, it actually like their battle reminded me a lot of Yugi and the Pharaoh's final duel in Yu-Gi-Oh!
Mm,
Where it was the kind of like the same kind of idea where like they learned from each other's strengths to make up for their own weaknesses, kind of thing.
yeah, and it's funny because like it's like Red's just like straight up the champion after this, and it you think that would feel more, I guess back in the when this came out, that was probably more significant. But like reading it, I'm like, cool. What does this mean?
Yeah, right.
And then you literally find out in the start of the next chapter, it means literally nothing.
It
Really.
just means like, all right, I'm the hot shit now. Everybody's challenging me, so I'm getting in all these battles. But like, y'all kind of suck, so I'm just bored.
Yep. And then we get introduced to Yellow, the series this manga's first original character.
Yes.
And her first appearance, I love the fact that her first appearance gives away the whole secret with her, like later on.
Well, the funny thing is, the first time I read this manga, I don't know what, maybe I just had a few days between the volumes or something, like between reading volume 3 and volume 4, but I had totally forgotten that that interaction had happened when I read it the first time.
It's so random. Like Red meets her and then just immediately disappears, and then like we cut to like the next arc, and it's like Red's just getting challenged by all these people, and then he shows up later, and it's just like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because like this is where it gets even weirder. Because like at this point now, like Red's like getting challenged, and he gets like this one really big challenge, and he goes off to face against the. It's implied to be Koga of the Elite Four, and then he just straight up vanishes.
Bruno.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mix
Did
those
I?
two. I mix those two up all the time.
Well, it also is confusing because it also is confusing too because Koga becomes a member of
Joins
the
the
Elite
Elite
Four later
Four.
on.
Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's like Red is just missing, and then we got to Yellow, and then Yellow finds Red's Pikachu, and it's like all battered and bruised, which is like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, it had like a scar on its ear or something.
Hmm. And then we find out Yellow has magical powers that can heal Pokemon.
And read their minds.
Yeah, I understand why Yellow's not exactly the most popular character because she does feel very clearly a fan character, kind of at times.
Yeah, I get that. I don't know. I felt like I enjoyed Yellow as a character a lot more on this reread than I did previously.
She came off as just kind of boring to me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, well, that was kind of my first impression too. But like, I also kind of see where I know kind of more about where she ends up later on. So I'm kind of looking at her arc as a whole rather than just the isolated 4 volumes in this case.
Yeah. They also have like this whole. We find out why later on, but there's a whole like running thing where she's pretending to be a boy for most of the storyline,
Mm-hmm.
basically by just wearing a straw hat, hiding her ponytail.
Yes.
And I laugh because I see it. I'm like, she she looks like a girl. Like, I mean, I don't. It doesn't. It's not a great disguise.
No, it's really not. But
But I guess because they're supposed to be. It's because of how the art is drawn. Like anime and manga characters just inherently look more feminine at times.
yeah, well, and she is, I'm pretty sure, supposed to be younger than the rest of them. So I
Yeah.
guess you can
So
kind of get how she could pass as a boy in that way.
yeah, it's just one of those things where it's kind of like, I guess because I read this like right going from the first arc to the second arc. I already saw the little spoiler where it's like, oh yeah, she's clearly a girl, but
Yeah.
It's also you later find out the reason why she's pretending to be a boy is completely like not really consequential to anything.
Yeah, I still don't really understand why Green told her to do that, but
Green doesn't make a lot of sense all the time.
no. Or actually, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I think Green specifically said pretend you're a boy until you can use being a girl as a weapon.
Right. Oh yeah.
pretty much saying, don't say that you're a girl until you hit puberty and can use it.
Yeah.
Which
Granted, Green's the only character in the series that does this, but
yeah, it's
as of now,
bizarre.
I haven't read the later ones, but
I don't remember there being another character that's like overtly uses that.
True.
At least to my memory, out of the ones I've read so far.
I think it's just jarring because like they completely made this personality up for Green just out of nowhere because she had nothing.
Yeah, they really had nothing to work with in that case. And then because the only other appearance aside from Fire Red Leaf Green, to my knowledge in the games, was she appeared towards the end of the Let's Go games.
But that's like considered a different version of the character entirely at this point.
But I feel like the little bit that you do get of her in that game feels to me like they just kind of lifted her character out of the manga and stuck it there.
She's a bit more dark and broody in Let's Go compared to how she is in the, because the manga she's just a flirt, really.
Yeah.
But Let's Go is also like its own canon anyways, so
yeah, I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, trying to figure out the game canon is just not worth it sometimes.
Oh, I just straightened out my back and just every bit of it just cracked.
Happens. So
I have an awkward podcasting setup, so I'm hunched over for a lot of it.
Gotcha. But going back now, so there's like this whole mystery going on of like what happened to Red. And Green actually has like an interesting theory where she goes to Bill because they're after Bill because of Bill's computer system or something.
Something like that. I don't remember why they go after Bill.
It had something to do with like he had something they needed, but
oh, you know what? I think it was just because he bumped into Yellow and then he just happened to be associated with Yellow from that point.
Maybe it was some arbitrary reason why Team Rocket was after him, but or not Team Rocket, why the Elite Four? Because the Elite Four are evil pricks in this for some reason.
Yeah, everyone's evil. Everyone's evil in this.
Lance is the big bad of this arc, which is weird to me, considering he's such a nothing character in the games. But yeah, so like there's a whole like subplot where Leaf goes to Green goes to Bill to try and hack his computer system, and she literally goes in, breaks in, and like starts messing with it while he's sleeping. And he's like, "What the hell are you doing?" She's like, "Well, I didn't want to bother waking you up, so I'm just gonna hack it myself."
And then he's just like, "Well, you could have asked."
But her theory was she basically wanted to check Red's box history to see if, because his Pikachu's obviously not with him, she wanted to see if he had moved anything around, basically just to like see if he's still alive or not.
Mm-hmm.
And during this whole,
I was going to say, which it turned out he had. He replaced Pikachu with Eevee.
Yeah, it's confusing when that happens exactly, but this entire arc is kind of told like all over the place wise, but literally, and then after that though, like the Elite Four show up and basically blow up like Bill's entire building.
Yeah.
And then there's like this whole thing where they're hiding, and like Leaf uses this. No, I'm gonna keep saying that, but Green keeps using this like weird like talk like bubble thing to like talk to her Blastoise.
Yeah.
She's got a gadget for everything, and like it makes me wonder if this is also one of her snake oil sales that she has going on.
Well, apparently it works for her, so I mean, I can't really alter for it.
She's got all sorts of weird gadgets.
Oh, how about the just throwing this out there randomly, just popped into my head. How about the fucking Hitmonlee's spring legs?
I saw that and I was like, is that what they were supposed to be?
Because I've never seen that in any of the games or in the original anime. It's always just been legs, but like all of a sudden in the manga now there's springs.
I've never actually seen. I don't think I ever had a Hitmonlee in the 3D games, so I've never seen him animated in 3D. So now I'm actually curious because I wonder if that's a thing or if that's just something that Mato just kind of thought of.
I think it's a Mato thing because I know I've used Hitmonlees. I don't remember if it was in the newer games or not, but I know for a fact I've definitely used Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee a bunch of times, and that's never until I read the manga that didn't even cross my mind that they were springs.
Yeah, it's just a weird like. Also,
Kind of cool though.
Bruno's just kind of a bastard, even though it's later revealed that he's just brainwashed. But
Yeah, he's actually just actually generally a pretty cool dude. He's just he just wants to challenge himself and shit. He's just being manipulated.
he's just like it's just if Goku was manipulated, basically.
Yeah, and then Lorelai's kind of the same, but more old school brainwashing rather than like psychic Pokemon brainwashing.
Agatha's just straight up evil.
Yeah, because Lorelai was like recruited as a child, and she had like witnessed a bunch of um like pollution and stuff that had hurt her Pokemon and that kind. We should probably bring up what the Elite Four's actual motivation is. They hate humans that because they're ruining the world for Pokemon, so they want to basically eliminate the vast majority of the population of humans and only leave like the elite.
Team Plasma, the origin story.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's a weird the whole weird thing. And it's funny because like they go through this entire thing and it's like, where the hell is Red? And it's like you keep seeing glimpses of what happened with Red during his fight with Bruno, but we later find out he was frozen by Lorelai.
Yeah.
Like he's straight up in a block of ice for like a good couple volumes.
Yeah, but then like, by the time they find out that he was frozen, he had already gotten out.
Yeah, because he like eventually waltzes back in on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, like all the gym leaders and all of the Pokédex group are essentially they're all converging in this like one battle. They're all basically fighting off against like Lance and Agatha, and like Red just kind of like waltzes and he's like, "Hey guys, I'm not dead."
Yeah, right. He just kind of shows up. He's just like, "Hey, guess who saved me?" You'll never guess.
Yep. And then he reunites with Pikachu, which is heartwarming.
Oh yeah, always.
I'm not gonna lie though, the fight at the end was kind of anticlimactic.
You think so?
Maybe just because of the way I read it, but I was kind of like, oh, they're fighting Lance. It's like, oh, Lance is done. That's it.
Well, I mean, I kind of like how, like, they made this huge deal about Red being missing. We need Red, and everything. But like, he pretty much just beat Bruno, and that was kind of it. That's all he did. And Yellow was kind of like the main focus. Like, Yellow was the one who was fighting because it was a whole thing where like it wasn't really like a prophecy, but it was kind of like just more of a known thing. Like the only person who could beat. Oh, because it turns out that Lance is also from Viridian Forest and has the same power as Yellow, and that's actually,
that was a thing.
Yeah, that's why Green recruited Yellow specifically because apparently you can only defeat someone with that power if you also have that power and a Pokemon who's from Viridian Forest. It was convoluted, so that's why Yellow is like the one. But then like Giovanni shows up, he's like, "Guess what? I'm from Viridian too."
It's like, okay,
cool. Good for you.
Oh yeah, we have to mention Blaine and Mewtwo because they are a interesting idea.
Yeah, I really like the whole like we didn't even talk about the Mewtwo thing at all when we completely passed over that
because it kind of gets glazed over when you first see it, and then like we get explained later on.
Yeah, but the whole like concept of like the reason why Mewtwo is the way he is because Blaine used his own DNA to make him. So Mewtwo is actually part human, but it turned out that Blaine had. It's kind of up in the air about whether or not it was on purpose or an accident, but got some Mewtwo DNA into him. So they have like this weird
symbiotic bond.
Yeah, like an invisible like connection between each other, and like Blaine's pretty much like slowly dying from it, but that also kind of makes him like his Mewtwo's official trainer.
Yeah, but the weird caveat is that Mewtwo, because of how Mewtwo is, he can only be out for like 5 minutes at a time.
Yeah, because I think if he's out for too long, then Blaine's Mewtwo disease will
Spread.
accelerate faster and kill him.
Yeah, it's like a weird. There's like a weird image though, where you get to see like Yellow holding Mewtwo's Pokeball, like because he's in a Master Ball, because of course he is.
Yeah,
But you just see Mewtwo chilling in there, and it's like this is just such a weird concept.
it really is. How about Mewtwo's giant spoon?
Oh, yeah, they all had spoons at one point.
Yeah, it's like apparently spoon is just what you have if you're a psychic Pokemon. Like,
yeah,
if you have hands and you're a psychic Pokemon, you probably have a spoon.
Which is really funny because I'm pretty sure that spoon thing is partially. There was like a lawsuit going on with Pokemon at one point because I guess that spoon thing, like the Kadabra's like design, is based off of some like Japanese comedian, I guess.
I think it was like a self-proclaimed psychic or something from a while ago.
Yeah,
who his whole thing was bending spoons with his mind or something.
Yeah, I guess he was suing the Pokemon company at one point.
I don't think it went anywhere though.
Nah, it's just really funny,
obviously
though.
They still have spoons, so
there was a point where Kadabra wasn't in like a bunch of media. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I'm trying to think. Oh, the other thing was whenever like Blaine's condition acts up, it like I don't even know how you describe what happens to his arm. It's kind of like almost liquefies and then like hardens into spikes or something. Like,
yeah, it's weird.
Weirdly enough, like what happens to his arm, like that image of it is, yeah, even though I know this isn't the case, but whenever somebody says shingles, like, oh, this person got shingles, that's what I picture in my mind. Like, yeah, I don't know why I make that connection, but it's just, it sounds so gross that that's what I picture.
Yeah, it's an odd choice, but it's effective because it's striking.
Oh, it's extremely effective because it's like, oh yeah, you are actually dying from this. Like,
yeah, it's funny. Like, there's so many like weird like little subplots going on here, and I'm sure they all make sense later on. So I'm looking forward to reading like more into this, like as it goes on.
Yeah,
but after the fight's over, it's basically everything kind of goes back to normal for the most part. Like all the gym leaders kind of go back to wherever they were.
Yeah, because it wasn't it like after Giovanni showed up and did his thing, the like was it the Team Rocket trio or whatever, those three gym leaders came up and were like, hey boss, we've been getting things ready for you. And he's like, fuck you, I'm training. You should go do the same.
Yeah, well, Sabrina and Surge do. It's left ambiguous what Koga's up to.
Yeah.
And then other than that, it's like Red's business as usual. And then of course the arc ends with the big like stinger for the next arc, which is Green is talking on the phone with someone we don't hear initially, and it sounds like it sounds like Leaf is kind of like Green is like sort of a double agent kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
And
because it's kind of like revealed throughout that her main goal of what she's trying to accomplish is she's trying to find the Pokemon that kidnapped her.
Yes, yeah, but we'll probably figure that out later.
Well, guessing. We did see we saw the silhouette of it, and anyone who knows Pokemon knows what it is. It's Ho-Oh.
Yeah.
And and the whole thing that Lance was trying to do, he was trying to summon Lugia and like take control of it to like destroy the world or whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, also Green just has a Snubble.
Sure.
That she just never used. She just had it. Which is weird.
Why not? But yeah, the whole reveal is like it shows that the person she's talking to on the phone is Silver.
Mm-hmm.
Which was huh? I just thought it was interesting because when he shows up on screen, it's his original design. I'm like, I haven't seen that in years.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of hinted at, like, when you first kind of learn about Green's origin, when she's fighting Sabrina in Saffron, She gets trapped in like hallucinations or like visions or whatever, illusions.
Yeah.
And you kind of see in the background, what the hell is that tower? And it was an Ecritique City in Gen
Yeah.
2. So basically, it's like if you know Pokemon, you're like, oh, she was kidnapped and taken to Johto.
Yes.
So that's kind of make that connection there. And then, you don't find out until 4 volumes later that she's, buddy buddy with Silver.
Yeah. No, that's true. Um, yeah, it's interesting. So I guess like final thoughts. Well, not final thought. We'll chat for a bit more, but it's interesting. Like going through this entire manga, the liberties they take with Pokemon to me, like I'm amazed Nintendo lets them get away with some of their decisions at times.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's a
Because
lot of
this,
like wild stuff.
yeah, like I'm am- I'm amazed they let zombie Psyducks go through, but
Mhm.
Nintendo was a bit more edgy back in the day, so I'll see how toned down like the more modern issues get once I get to them. But
Mhm. I love how Yellow managed to incorporate the surfing Pikachu into the manga.
yeah, that was interesting. That was an interesting idea.
Because like basically the whole idea was that Pikachu earlier in the manga had learned how to use the move Substitute, which kind of like creates like an energy clone duplicate. And
Yeah,
basically, Yellow figured out how to teach Pikachu to create the substitute and then form it into a surfboard. So they're just surfing on it, the substitute.
yeah, it was a clever idea to make a reference to that really obscure thing you could do in Pokemon Stadium.
Yeah, it's some really wild stuff in this manga. Like I took like 12 pages of notes on this, and I barely touched on a lot of the stuff that I talked that I took notes on. But like there's just so much to it. It's hard to cover it all.
The amount of fleshed out characters too is pretty interesting, especially for a series where the characters mostly don't have personality.
Yeah,
I mean, in the game universe, red and green don't exist at the same time,
right.
which is a weird. That's like the only instance of that I believe, because I
Mhm.
know all the later series, like if you're playing as the male protagonist, the female protagonist appears in game in some form or another.
Yeah.
Gen 1 is like the only one where they just straight up don't. Well, Gen 2 kind of as well. Heart Gold Soul Silver kind of changed all that later on, but
Yeah.
and completely wrote out a character that we'll be seeing in the next volume.
Mhm.
But other than that, though, it's like it's interesting to see, especially because like the personalities they give the characters to are wildly different.
Yeah, and I do like that each of the characters feel unique as you're going through. Like it's not like they're just cookie cuttering each of these characters. Like they are distinct and fleshed out individually.
Well, yeah, especially like comparing manga red to game red is very interesting because game red is straight up a stoic, doesn't say anything, supposedly like over like way more powerful than anybody trainer.
Mhm.
Kind of a lone. Red is weird in the games. Honestly, the more I think about it,
Yeah,
um, blue is like less of an ass, but just kind of more of a. He's less of an ass and more of a bastard in the manga.
yeah. Because there's some points in the manga where he's just straight up like, no, I don't care what happens to you, but this
One of
thing
the
over here involves me in some way, so I guess I'll help.
one of the most dickish moments he has in the manga is what during the brief period where Red has his Pokemon. There he catches it's like a Ninetales, I think,
Mhm.
and Red catches it, but then Blue just takes it because he's like, well, you caught that with my Pokemon, so it's my Pokemon now.
Yeah, right.
Despite it being Red's Pokeball and did all the work, but
Stupid.
that's why I don't get the Pokeballs really in this universe. It seems like they're just kind of a holding device for the Pokemon at this point.
It's basically just a cage. Like
Yeah.
it's like the cage doesn't care who holds it. It's just a cage. Does its job.
It's funny because it's like it's implied too that other people can catch other people's Pokemon. Because
Yeah, because I didn't. Didn't Red catch someone else's Pokemon at one point?
Yeah, he catches the Gyarados. That was supposedly Misty's Pokemon.
Yeah, but I thought there was another point where he was like specifically like, "Oh, there's a wild Pokemon. I'm gonna catch it," and then somebody comes out and she's like, "Hey, that's mine."
Oh man, yeah, I think there is at one point. It's confusing how they handle that because it's basically just kind of like, well, it's in my Pokeball now.
Yeah, right. I did like I did like how sometimes, like especially whenever they're doing stuff with the Pokedex, like it would show like the Pokedex screen and it would just be images from the games.
Yeah, that was clever. That was a nice
Um,
touch.
Also, how in the manga it reveals that the whole canceling evolution thing is unique to only Pokedex holders.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting. That was actually a pretty funny scene where Yellow's Rattata or Rattata evolves and it evolves into Eradicate, and she's all distraught about it. And it's like, you could
Yeah,
have canceled it with the Pokédex.
yeah. I that was one thing I liked about like the final battle was how Yellow was just like, oh well, I've actually been keeping my Pokemon from evolving this whole time, but now I don't have the Pokedex, so I can't do that. And they all evolve at once, and
Yeah.
actually, at the end of the day, Yellow's team is actually not bad. Like,
No, just the way that she kind of like everything always works for her, I felt was a little like contrived a bit. But I think she's supposed to be more of the player character in this world because we can't be really Red at this point.
yeah, well, I mean, she's like the super empathic character. Like, she doesn't really like she ends up eventually developing a taste for it, but she's not crazy about battling in general.
Yeah, it's
So,
like
I mean, that kind of fits their character.
yeah, it's interesting how they handle that. I'm curious to see where it goes because I've heard people say the gold and silver arc is one of the best.
It's my personal favorite, but I also, I mean, that's kind of like a bias because Gold was the game that I played the most as a kid out of
Yeah,
like the original Game Boy versions.
that's understandable because like I'm looking forward to getting to the Ruby and Sapphire arc just because I grew up with Ruby with the Emerald version as a kid.
Yeah, well, see, it's weird for me because I had a copy. Like my first Pokemon game ever was Yellow, so I guess that's part of the reason why I am a little bit biased towards Yellow as a character. But also like Gold was the one I feel like I played the most, but Ruby was the one I got on my 10th birthday.
Hmm.
So like those three games in particular are like, so like I like Gold a lot as a character in the manga.
Yeah,
Um, he's obviously I'm not going to go too much into detail, but he's a lot more. I don't know if edgy is the right word, but he's not as much of a goody two shoes as Red, but he's also not like a bad dude.
yeah. So it's interesting to me mostly because like I like I find it interesting how the manga like the way it names the characters is like kind of bizarre because it uses the game versions to name most of the characters,
Mm.
which to be fair, the original game also did that, but then like we get to like the later games, they actually all have real names.
Yeah.
Well, because like in Heart Gold, Soul Silver, I think Gold is Ethan. Silver's still Silver for whatever reason.
Huh.
Um, and then Chris was just erased, and she's Lyra now.
That's. Oh yeah, in the games. Yeah.
Yeah, in the games.
That was weird.
Because then like Ruby and Sapphire, I know in the manga it's like they're literally Ruby and Sapphire, but in the game it's Brandon and May.
Yeah, that was weird. I don't understand why they did that. That could just be in a Western thing though.
Well, no, he's always been Brandon, and well, they have Japanese names in Japan,
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
obviously.
But
Um,
I that's what I'm excited to get to is the Ruby and Sapphire ones because that was one of the ones like when it started I wasn't crazy about it, but as it went on it grew on me, and by the end of it I was like super invested in their story.
well, I've heard Sapphire is a very different version of May, so
Oh yeah, she's like the best character in that arc.
okay, I'm looking forward to it then.
She's like I don't know. I don't know if you want me to say anything about it, but
Nah, I'll get to it.
fair enough. But yeah, it's really fun, and I like the way that at least up until was it Fire Red, Leaf Green, Emerald, up until that box set, or through that box set, I should say, it's all interconnected stories. Like you're gonna see these characters from the stuff that we just read in the later arcs.
Mm, yeah.
Diamond Pearl Platinum is where it kind of starts to reset, and like it is still technically the same world, but it's a lot less involved with the previous stuff that happened.
Yeah, it's kind of like the games actually, where like everything was kind of connected, and then we get to like the later entries where they all kind of feel like super. They end up feeling like super standalone, but they're also vaguely connected.
Yeah. Because there are, I think, I'm trying to remember. Because I know the Pokemon, like I said, the Pokemon fan club chairman guy, he appears in all of them.
Yeah.
And I know there was I forget which ones, but I think maybe Blue's sister shows up in Diamond Pearl at one point.
Oh,
And
Daisy, I think her name is. She appears
yeah,
for like 1 second in this arc.
yeah, I think she shows up, and I feel like maybe Bill.
I've seen a still that Green appears in black and white at one point, so
Mhm.
there's definitely a lot of crossover.
Yeah. So even though like the stories aren't as interconnected as they are up to that point, they're still all part of
Well, yeah, especially
the
considering
same universe, and you're still gonna see other characters that you're already familiar with throughout.
yeah, especially because like the Heart Gold Soul Silver arc takes place after Diamond and Pearl, so they're all definitely in the same universe.
Mhm. Um, just for the listeners, we are having that a little bit of that lag problem we had a couple episodes ago. So if there's some weird silences or us talking over each other, that's why.
Yeah, I gotta figure out what's causing that.
I don't know because it didn't happen last time, so I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. Other than that, though, like we're gonna obviously revisit this later on once we finish. Well, probably once I finish reading Gold Silver, because you're gonna be rereading, I'm assuming. So
Yeah, well, it's been a little bit since I've gone through them, so I'd need the refresher anyway. I remember a lot of the vague, like major plot points,
gotcha.
but a lot of the specifics are lost on me.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll probably start reading that like just gradually over the next month, and then once we're caught up to it, then I guess we can do the next one of these.
Yeah,
That'll probably be like within a few episodes or so. Um,
although I would like to break it up a little bit, like maybe do some standalone mangas here
yeah,
and there.
no,
Like I'd
we
like to
won't.
cover Sandland at some point.
Hmm.
That would be cool. Because that one's just a single volume, like the one and done kind of thing, and that'd be kind of fun to talk about with a little bit more detail.
Yeah, no, that would be cool. Like, I figure I'll just read like Gold and Silver in the background just so I can keep up with it because it's hard for me to keep up with manga,
Yeah, for sure.
especially when I have a schedule when I'm under a deadline. Because this was surprised. Like, I literally only finished the final volume of this last night because I just have so much other stuff I gotta keep up with.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, you know, I think I was finishing like a volume a day, but like with the amount of notes that I ended up taking to try and keep track of the storyline and what was going on and stuff, and just to keep stuff in my head, like the act of taking the notes throughout reading it, like I could have sped read through all of them,
Mhm.
but if I wasn't taking notes, I was going to end up losing a lot of the thread of the plot along the way, and I didn't. There's a lot of stuff I wanted to bring up, and I'm sure I still missed some stuff, but
Yeah,
um,
like I'm gonna say like final thoughts. Like I do recommend people check this out because it is definitely the most interesting Pokemon side series probably that's ever been made. My whole thing is though, like it's weird to me because it starts off really strong. Like those first couple volumes are like get you sucked
Mhm.
in. It kind of gets a little convoluted towards like around volume 5 and 6. Um, I admit, like, and it was a bit hard to follow, but you're still kind of engaged with what's going on, and it's such a you kind of want to know what happens next, so it doesn't
Yeah.
really lose you from it, but it is a little hard to follow, which is probably my only real criticism I'd have with it.
It doesn't get as bad. Like I honestly, I think that yellow part is like that to my memory one of the lower points. And even then, like there was still a lot of stuff to like about it. You know, there was still plenty of things in that arc that kept my attention and made me interested and keep wanting to read. But
To me, I think
um,
the biggest problem with the yellow arc is just the weird kind of mismatched storytelling where like it's told out of order, which I get is a plot thing that some mangas and animes do, but it's just like especially going from the rather straightforward first arc and then jumping right into the second arc, which is kind of all over the place. It's a little jarring.
yeah, that's true. And I feel like Yellow is better served as a side character rather than a main character.
Yeah, is she ever a main character again after this, or is she pretty much side character for the rest of it?
No, I mean I think at one point she kind of acts as like a liaison. Like I mean, and that's a big word for what she actually is. It's rather a stronger word than what she actually was. But basically, she was kind of like, from what I remember, she kind of shows up and meets like the current main, and then like later on, the other characters become involved. But she's never like the main character again.
Gotcha.
Everyone kind of has like their own arc, and that's theirs. And then they'll show up later, but now it's the new character's domain when that happens.
Gotcha.
So,
All right. Well, I look forward to reading the next part. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up, or
um, not in particular. It's definitely worth a read. Check it out. I believe you can read them on the Shonen Jump app if you don't want to invest in the actual books. Although I do suggest the box sets are extremely affordable, and I don't know if by the time this is released the deals will still be going on. But as of right now, leading up into Christmas, I believe you can get this first box set that we read for like $35. So
Mm.
pretty affordable.
I also highly recommend the collector's edition volumes. So if you really want to read this arc, it literally is just the first three collector's edition volumes, like uh packed into like these really high quality, like they're not really Viz Bigs, they're more on par with like the Viz signature line, which
Mhm.
is just generally a higher quality collection. Those are very high quality, like the paper feels really nice, and it's probably better than the singles in all honesty, but it all depends on how you want to invest.
Yeah, I started getting the box sets before the collector's edition had come out. So yeah, I kind of got screwed on that, but whatever. I
Yeah.
like the box sets. They look nice on my shelf. So
Yeah. I mean, the collector's editions look really nice all together. The only problem is once you get to like after that you get through them, then you get to Diamond and Pearl, and it's like, nope, back to normal volumes all of a sudden.
yeah, I think it's kind of weird that they didn't continue on with those, but who knows? Maybe they'll do like individual ones for because with the way that they're not all interconnected later on, maybe they'll just do special editions for each set separately.
Maybe.
Who knows? Or they might just keep it where it is.
Yeah, it's so confusing because they haven't even officially collected like a bunch of like the later like Sun and Moon and like Sword and Shield are like still in like the super single like floppy versions, and then the I think X and Y is they just finished collecting all of those properly.
Which is weird because I don't know, the black and whites are a weird monster in that section
Well,
of it.
yeah, because there's 9 volumes of Black and White and then 4 of Black and White 2.
And then there's no like box sets for those, but there's a box set for X and Y. So it's weird.
Well, there's a box set of like the mini like the miniature volumes of X and Y, which is the full story, but they're not this they're passable, but I kind of wish in hindsight I knew that you could get they're all the X and Y regulars were available because I would have got those instead just to match. But oh well,
Yeah.
live and learn.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, other than that, though, I think we'll wrap this up for now. Next episode, I'm not sure yet because we originally had something planned, but scheduling conflicts kind of came up.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know when we're gonna get to that one.
yeah,
But
so we might have to hold off on that. So next week, we'll get back to you on that.
yeah, we'll work it out.
Yeah, but actually, I think this might be the last episode releasing this year, maybe.
No, I think this is the first of next year.
Oh,
Yeah, I think that's why we kind of the last one how we ended off with like favorites from the year and stuff like that.
right. That's true.
Yeah.
Right. Well, happy New Year, happy 2024 then to everyone listening.
Yeah. Happy New Year. I'm turning 30 this year. Yikes.
Yep, I'm turning 29 in like a month, so
Jeez.
yay. Yay.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, anyways, guys, once again, thanks for joining us on Geek Addicts. Geek Addicts you can find every Tuesday on the GNC feed. And if you'd like to find all of our links and stuff, you can go to linktree/the Barber Who Games. And if you'd like to join our Discord server, it is the GNC Podcast Network. You can find all the information on gaming and collecting, Geek Addicts, the 3DO experience, talk gaming, anime, or just general chat. We're all a bunch of nice people there. And until next time,
the Froggy sessions.
Yeah, that's the thing. Blame Snickerman. He started it. Anyway, excuse me. Anyways, guys, once again, thanks for joining us. We will see you all later.
See ya.